Good evening and welcome to Bible class. We are back after a few weeks break. I got sick in the middle of it, and so we missed a few weeks there. And then, of course, I was gone for Thanksgiving break, and you guys were all eating your turkey. So, now we're back with a brand new Bible study. We're looking at the life of Moses, one of the most well-known prophets in the Bible. And what we're going to specifically do is take a deep dive into the scriptures and see what we can mine out and see what we can learn about Moses from the scriptures themselves. Now, what you're going to need to do for tonight's Bible study and have handy are a couple of things. First and foremost, you're going to need to like and share this Bible study. That way more people can join us. So go ahead and do that now. That's by that little thumb or that little arrow down below me. Another thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need a copy of tonight's Bible study. That's going to look like this. Can I borrow? It looks like this. I emailed it out earlier today. If you didn't get my email, you can also find it directly below me on this Facebook post, or you can find it behind me on the screen. Now it's going to show up there throughout the entire night tonight. Another thing that you're going to need is you're going to need a Bible. All the verses you're going to see tonight up there are going to come from the EHV Study Bible, or EHV Bible. If you don't have one of those handy, that's okay. You use whatever translation you feel comfortable with. It's okay by me. Another thing you might want to have handy is a snack or a drink. Tonight we have, it looks like some kind of coffee cake, oatmeal cookies, and pumpkin bread. You guys can just think about how delicious that sounds, or you can join us next week live and in person here at Peace, or you can eat your own snacks there at home. And then other things we have is coffee in house, maybe some tea, water. I myself am drinking this delicious lemon hot water. So that sounds delicious, I'm sure.
Sounds familiar.
But you are welcome to enjoy whatever beverage you would like at home. Also, tonight is an interactive Bible study, so you're going to hear voices in a piece, but your voice can be heard too. All you have to do is type your very own message to me live right here. Like, for example, I see Jolie said watching, Dave said watching, I'm sure Janice is watching with you. Hi, guys. We've got Flo said she's watching. And I see that we've got several other people. You guys haven't said anything yet. You need to say something so we know you're here. And if you have questions or you just want to add a comment, go ahead and say something. Andrew's going to shout it out and we'll respond. With that, I'm going to start you off with some things that I learned about Moses already. As I was preparing for tonight's Bible study, archaeologists, as I was reading, know, for example, what kind of haircut Moses used.
I hadn't heard about that.
I want to see.
He parted it.
Yeah, he parted it.
Moses parted it. It's true. Also, you might not know, Moses was very technologically advanced. He was the first one to ever carry a tablet connected to the cloud.
Yeah, right.
All very true. All right. And there you go. All right, let's get started. Tonight we're going to look at our Bible study. The very first thing we're going to do is look at that first paragraph recorded there. And it is going to say as follows. Anybody want to start us out by reading? Andrea.
Whether we're waiting for a phone call offering us a new job, a letter granting us admission to a college, or an invitation to a special event, we are eager to be chosen. Being chosen opens up new opportunities and responsibilities, while being passed over means continuing the same routine and problems we've had.
The good news of the Christian faith is that God of the Bible is a God who chooses and calls. God chose Abraham and called him out of Ur to follow him into the unknown land. God chose Peter by the sea and called him to fish for people. Even better news is the fact that God doesn't just call the great heroes of the faith. According to the Apostle Paul, each and every one of us are called. All right. Now, one of the things I want to point out is this. Take a look up here. How has a call ever made a difference in your life? Have you ever received a call that's really made a difference?
The phone call that we got was a doctor calling and said, would you like to be a mother? And I said, yes, and are you sure?
Oh, there's a big call. A call from a doctor. Yeah, that changed your life forever.
Well, the one I went through is like there's not many jobs out there, and I got stuck working at where I'm at, and I've been there for a long, long time.
There you go, a call for a
And
job.
I realized I got job security.
There you go, job security.
Elected to the apologetics board for the synod.
There you
There you
go,
go.
call,
Yeah,
a divine
John.
call to the synod. There you go. Anybody else got an idea of a call that you received that changed your life? So you can see that calls have come in all the time. It might be a call that you get that is one that you want. I can remember a time I got a call that was a call that maybe you don't want, that was being called up to service, and you kind of put your foot on the brake and go, whoa, this is going to offset my career. I was in college, and they called me up and they said, all right, we're activating your unit. And I knew that that was going to put me back in my college career a little bit, because I was going to have to drop out of some classes and things like that, and that was going to put me back, and I wasn't real excited about that. So that was not a positive call that I was looking forward to. Other times there might be positive calls, like something you're excited about. Sometimes they're divine calls, like you get called into the ministry.
I think sometimes we realize we don't realize that we have received a call until afterwards.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
Certain times we've had to make moves in our life that we never realized, though, that the Lord had a plan for us.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to see today. As we read through, keep an eye on that Moses certainly didn't see God's plan until maybe after he got a little bit of a boot.
Jolie said, I guess you could say that I called Eric to be my husband. We met on the phone before we met in person.
There you go. All right, so let's go to the next question. The second discussion question that we have before us is, do you know any other biblical characters that received a similar call to Moses'? One that was brought out already for us was Abraham's call,
Yeah.
where he received a call and was told, all right, pick up all your stuff and move to a foreign land. You are going to be my people now. Is there anybody else you can think of as a biblical character?
Gideon.
Gideon. Jonah.
No.
Oh, he didn't want to go, did he?
No.
Yeah, he was like, no, I ain't going. In fact, he tried to run, but
The other
always
one,
called back.
big figure, was Noah, because he got God's instructions how to build an ark. You can't understand why from the beginning.
Noah. Now, that's a good one.
Two big prophets, Jeremiah and Isaiah.
Jeremiah and Isaiah, both of them are recorded very well in their scriptures. That's how it starts out. Isaiah 6, big call chapter. I think it even says that, Isaiah's call.
And then Jeremiah, where God says, before you were born, I knew you, and I called you out of the nations.
Absolutely. You know who I'm thinking about? What about Saul becoming Paul?
Called
Yeah.
Paul.
Right? Big change in his
Oh.
life there, right?
You mentioned Peter in the paragraph. What about James and John,
Mm.
Philip?
All of those
Matthew,
guys, you see Jesus calling them
disciples.
individually, don't you? I'm calling you to be fishers of men. There you go.
Jolie says David, God chose him out of all his brothers.
There you go. You know, all these are men, but I also am now just thinking, what about Mary?
Yeah.
Mary,
Yeah.
Esther.
Yeah,
Esther.
Mary, Esther, all of these people, right? What about, this was a time such as this. You were called for a time such as this. Yeah, Esther. Fantastic. All right, so let's go down now, so we don't spend too much time on this. Let's go to the next paragraph. It says, anybody want to read this paragraph? Well, I'll read it, and we'll call other people to read the Bible verses. In Exodus chapter 1, we hear that a time had come when the Pharaoh had forgotten Joseph. This is a key to understanding the plight of the Hebrew people. They were no longer enjoying the blessings of Egypt, nor were they under the protection of the king. In fact, we learn that they were enslaved and grown so large in number that they were feared. Moses, who by the grace of God was spared in the Nile, found himself a hunted man, wanted for murder. Yet God would use this flawed man to put things into place. Now, I want you to notice something. This is called the life of Moses, but we're kind of jumping a little bit. We're skipping over. It's really only a chapter of Moses' life. We're skipping from his birth all the way to the burning bush. So we're going right to his call. We're skipping the whole Nile business. So I want you to keep in mind here that Joseph was very favored in Egypt. Okay?
So it sounds like chronological and archaeological evidence points to Joseph and the Israelites having that favor under Egyptian kings. But when the Nubian pharaohs came to power a short time after Joseph died, that was where it was a pharaoh came that did not know Joseph.
Yeah. So we can say that we know that there's time that's passed here, and there's things that have changed, and we can say changing of the guard, and now things have changed in the way that they're treated, and they're no longer the favored people. In fact, they're now enslaved, and so now God has worked it out that He has come through the Nile. And Miriam has taken him to the Nile and brought him up. And the Pharaoh's daughter pulls him out, and then who ends up nursing him?
His mother.
His mother. And that becomes important. We all need to kind of keep that. I'm building up, just kind of keep those facts in your mind, because that gives us a little bit of reminder of he's going to be raised with some of those understandings of who he is in his mind, right? He doesn't lose his history. All right, so let's go to Exodus chapter 3. So if you're at home, or if you want to grab a Bible and you want to have it in front of you, you can have that. Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 13 is what we're going to read right now. And I'm going to ask somebody to read maybe Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 13. Would somebody be willing to do that?
Now Moses was shepherding the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, a priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness, and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from within a bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire, but the bush was not burning up. So he said, I will go over and look at this amazing sight, to find out why the bush is not burning up. When the Lord saw that Moses had gone over to take a look, God called to him from the middle of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. Moses said, I am here. The Lord said, do not come any closer. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. He then said, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have certainly seen the misery of my people in Egypt, and I have heard their cry for help because of their slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their sufferings, and so I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now indeed the Israelites' cry for help has come to me. Yes, I have seen how the Egyptians are oppressing them. Come now, I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt? So he said, I will certainly be with you. This will be the sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will serve God on this mountain. But Moses said to God, if I go to Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What should I say to them?
All right. So let's look at question number 3 now, because it's going to tell us a lot about what we need to know at this point in Moses' life. All right. Take a look at verse 1. Now I'm going to put it up on the board. In verse 1, it says this. Now Moses was shepherding the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, a priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. So what do we learn about Moses' new life in this section of Scripture?
Well, he took a crash course in shepherding because he had nothing to do with that before.
In
Yeah.
fact, as he was raised up, remember, Joseph said, you want the best grazing land, so say you are shepherds to the Pharaoh, because the Egyptians despised shepherds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. So exactly right. So the Egyptians didn't like shepherds, so we know that he wasn't a shepherd before. He was raised in the household of the Pharaoh,
Yeah.
and so we know that what kind of life was he living in the household of Pharaoh?
Decadency.
Decadency. He was wealthy. He was royalty. He was living the plush life, right? And we also know something else about him now in comparison to before that's revealed here. Anything else?
He's married.
There you go. There are the two things.
Now, how about a slight third thing? You mentioned his mother and being raised with Israelites and stuff.
Okay.
Midian descended from Abraham.
Okay. So we'll get there. But yeah, you're right. So he's got a father-in-law, and then we know that he's now kind of the other side. He's almost the complete opposite of the Egyptians now. And
Yeah.
that really is setting up where he's at in comparison to where he's been. Right? He's lived on both spectrums now. And so it's kind of giving us a little flavor of his new life in comparison. If we look at question number 4, it says, Moses is a shepherd tending his sheep, his father-in-law on the far side of the desert. What struggles might this new vocation have raised for him after having been an Egyptian prince? Now we're going to look, because there's a hint for us in Acts chapter 7. Would somebody like to read Acts chapter 7 for me up here?
At that time, Moses was born, and he was favored by God. For 3 months he was cared for in his father's house. After he was placed outside, Pharaoh's daughter took him in and brought him up as her own son. Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was powerful in his words and actions. But when he was 40 years old, he entered his mind to visit his brothers, the sons of Israel. When he saw one of them being mistreated, he defended him and avenged the oppressed man by striking down the Egyptian. He thought that his brothers would understand that God was giving them deliverance by his hand, but they did not understand. The next day he came across 2 of them while they were fighting, and he tried to reconcile them. He said, "Men, you are brothers. Why are you harming each other?" But the one who was harming his brother pushed him away, saying, "Who made you a ruler and a judge over us?" "Do you want to kill me the same way you killed the Egyptian yesterday?" At this remark, Moses fled and lived in exile in the land of Midian, where he became the father of 2 sons.
All right, so let's go back to that question. You have to go back. Backwards, no. All right. So the question was, Moses is a shepherd tending his sheep with his father-in-law on the far side of the desert. What struggles might this new vocation have raised for him, having been raised an Egyptian prince? So what did we learn from that Acts section?
So it's considering he's in exile tending sheep, so he's probably exposed to the elements. He knows hunger and thirst now.
Okay.
Other things want to kill him.
Yeah.
And, well, I also have he's very familiar with the cold, hard ground.
Yeah. And he really has no friends anywhere, does he?
Well,
No.
that's it. You know, when the Lord says to him, you know, you go back and you know, bring them, and he says, he's really leery now because he had his own people turn on him.
Yeah. So he now kind of knows he's got friends nowhere. All right. He's been on the boat, kind of the sharp point of both sticks, and so he's feeling a little rough. And so that's kind of where he's at as a shepherd, right? And maybe he kind of likes this job as a shepherd too, that he's out there on his own a little bit. So question number 5 then takes us to verses 2 through 10, and what it says as he sees God, and we're not going to read those all because that's a lot, but as he sees God, you know, in the burning bush, and he gets this impression of God. What's the first impression that he has of God? This bush that doesn't burn. Take off your sandals, for you're on holy ground. The bush that doesn't burn up. What's his first impression as he encounters God?
Unsure.
Fear, unsure, awe,
Wonder.
wonder.
But he also recognizes God's holiness because he fell to the ground and hid his face.
Holiness. He hides his face.
When I see this, and I always wonder, how much does Moses really understand? He was raised as an Egyptian.
Uh-huh.
He was accustomed to Egyptian law and religion. Yet he did have, in his early life, he had Hebrew contact.
There you go. So he, in being raised around the Hebrews too, he would have known of their faith.
Of it.
Yeah, and being raised with his mother as the wet nurse, you also have to remember that the way that the wet nurses worked, he probably would have been raised with that wet nurse, which would have been his mother, for quite some time, because the princess, as we refer to her, would not have paid much attention to him really for quite some time, right?
Well, we also have to consider that Jethro, his father-in-law, is a priest of Midian, and later in Exodus we find out that he kind of worships God.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So
he would have been familiar with all of these things, right? And so here, yeah, go ahead.
Jolie said, "What a change Moses makes. Here he hides his face from God. Years later, he asks God if he can see his face."
There you go. Here, this is kind of interesting. This is what we've got. He begins to understand something of God's holiness, right? Before he's told maybe of God's holiness from his mother. His sense of God appears throughout the rest of the Old Testament. This is from our Lutheran Confessions, and I thought this was interesting. It says this: God does not want to deal with us in any other way than through the spoken word and sacraments. And this is specifically referencing
the angel of the Lord.
Yeah, this is specifically referencing the dealing with the burning bush. So the fact that Moses would recognize this as God's word dealing with him, right? And so that's what he's recognizing, is that God is dealing with him through his word. And so God, how does God create the whole world?
He spoke.
He spoke. And so how is God dealing with Moses now?
He spoke.
He spoke to him. And so this is an interesting thing, is Moses recognizes this. And so that's why he kind of has this first impression of hiding himself. Take off your shoes. He's starting to recognize that this is a holy thing going on. And that leads us to what you just talked about, this idea of this angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord. And so let's talk about this. Who is the angel of the Lord that is speaking to Moses in this
Jesus.
section?
It's the pre-incarnate Jesus, yes.
The pre-incarnate Jesus. How do we know all of that?
There are quite a few verses in the Old Testament that speak to this. Two that I noted were Joshua, where he is the commander of the army of the Lord speaking to Joshua. And then a very famous one that is recorded in Daniel with the fiery furnace.
Yeah.
And one that looks like a son of the gods walking with the three men.
Yeah, it's interesting also that when you look at this up here, look at this. It says, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from within the bush. And then this is one of our commentators. It says, we're told the angel of the Lord appeared to Moses. This expression, the angel of the Lord, is often used in the Old Testament for the second person of the triune God, before he came to this earth in human form at Bethlehem. But in the New Testament, when Jesus takes on human form, it never refers to him as the angel of the Lord, because Jesus never tries to identify himself as an angel. He doesn't want to make that confusing for us. Do you see? And so if you look at this, even goes on a little bit further. I thought this was interesting. It says, in our text, the angel of the Lord, God, and Lord are used interchangeably. And that happens other places, like you were talking about with,
Yeah, I said Joshua.
Joshua, that's what I was thinking of. Joshua. I looked at that earlier today. Used interchangeably so that there can be no question that angel of the Lord means God himself in a special manifestation of his presence. So if you look at this specific text, the word angel of the Lord, right? He'll refer to it later as God. He'll refer to it as Lord. If you follow this specific angel of the Lord with Moses throughout this whole Exodus text, this is the same angel of the Lord that is later identified as the pillar of fire that leads them through. And it's also later identified as the same one that takes up its residency in the tabernacle. And what does the word tabernacle mean?
Tent or dwelling.
God amongst us.
Oh, God amongst us.
God amongst us. And so there you have it. Do you see? Okay. Any questions? We're doing good? All right, let's go into the next section where it says identification. It says identification is important. I think that's right. When you receive a phone call, one of the first things you do is check the caller ID. If you don't recognize the phone number, or it says something suspicious, you're likely not going to give the call much credence. However, if it is a number you know, you're likely to answer. God does the same with Moses. He gives plenty of reasons to answer. Pay attention to the call that is being issued. All right. So now we're at Exodus chapter 3, verse 14 through 22. Would somebody be willing to read Exodus 3, 14 through 22?
So God replied to Moses, I am who I am. He also said, you will say this to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also told Moses, say this to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is how I am to be remembered from generation to generation. Go, gather the elders of Israel together and tell them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have certainly been paying attention to you and to what they have done to you in Egypt. So I have said that I will bring you up from misery in Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. They will listen to your voice. Then you and the elders of Israel will go to the king of Egypt, and you will say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Now let us go on a 3-day journey into the wilderness, so that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not allow you to go unless he is forced to do so by a powerful hand. So I will reach out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in their midst. Afterward, he will let you go. I will give this people favor with the Egyptians, so that when you go, you will not go out empty-handed. Each woman is to ask her neighbor, as well as any woman staying in her house, for articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. You are to put them on your sons and daughters, and this way you will plunder the Egyptians.
All right. Look at question number 7. It says, God identifies himself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How might Moses' view of God have been influenced by his growing up as a Hebrew in an Egyptian palace among people who worshipped many different gods? And this is from Exodus 3:6. He said then, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. So how might his growing up as a Hebrew in an Egyptian palace have influenced him?
It seems like here it's like you probably would have recognized that he's kind of just another god worshipped in Egypt, but understanding that this is the God of the Hebrews and I am a Hebrew means that this is special.
Yeah. So look at this. This isn't all of them. This is a small cutout. This is the lead tier. Not even that really, because there's Isis, there's Osiris, there's Horus, but there's a moon. But I don't see Ra. Do you see Ra up there?
No.
No.
There's Roth down in the lower right hand
There's
corner.
Ra up. Yeah, but
Are you sure that's wrong?
yeah.
I don't know.
The top.
Sorry, it looked like.
So there's several more Egyptian gods, and they would worship them all. They would set up altars in their homes and things like this to their gods, and you would choose one god that you would worship or you would pay homage to.
That
And
would
so-
be the God that had the influence in your life. If you were a farmer, or if you were a fisherman, or if you were whatever.
Yeah, similar to like saints, only this would have even more influence. And then of course you would have like the god of the underworld, and then you would have chief gods, right? So there would be chief gods, and then there'd be underling gods that would have, like you said, chief influence in your life. So he would have all of these that he would understand. But then he would also have this. You see, he's got these folks that believe all of this. And then you have
His sister.
his sister and his mother, who are there as a young child, influencing him and still having these kind of tentacles into his life, probably up through about 13, touching him and influencing him and teaching him. And now we know that that's influential because of people like Titus and Timothy
Especially.
and other folks like that grandmothers and mothers influence and at a very young age are influenced. And so here we have a young child being raised, and what do you think his mother is doing to him as she's nursing him? Do you think she's just nursing him and handing him off to other Egyptian slaves right away?
No, she's teaching him about Hebrew culture.
Hebrew culture, that's what they did. They taught their children the prayers. They taught their children the stories. They memorized the scriptures, right? And so this is what he was learning at home as well. So he's kind of living in both worlds at the same time. And so if you go back to that question, Andrew, you're going to have to go backwards again. The question was, God identifies himself as the God of Abraham. So how is Moses' view influenced as growing up as a Hebrew in a Egyptian palace?
I think it's very confusing for him. How he had to handle the difficulties.
Okay.
He kind of probably in his mind as he became a young adult, he started blending them together. But then when the Lord told him this, it separated it.
Yeah.
And
Do you suppose that happens today in our society, like in mixed households?
Yeah.
I think so.
Like aren't there households where there are Christian mothers and maybe parents that are a father that is either not Christian or something else?
it'd be the other way around too.
Yeah.
Jolie said, in a modern version, he grew up in a Christian home but went to a Mormon school. It would have been very confusing.
Having a mother or father who's Jehovah's Witness and the other one is Christian.
There you go.
I would be really confused if they had both parents being atheist, and I had never had any experience growing up with Christianity.
So I just was on. I'm on a server of pastors, and there was a pastor that just shared a question about a family that is going through a rough time because the mother, father are getting a divorce, and their child is in confirmation age. You're just about to go into confirmation, and the divorce settlement is coming up. And the mother, I think it's the mother, has accused the father of abuse because he takes the children to church.
Yeah.
And
That could happen.
and they said that and
That's
her-
what
her-
they believe.
and her
They're
Uh-huh.
starting
response
to.
is, she used to go to church too, but she said she declared herself an atheist, and she said that taking the children to church is tantamount to abuse.
Doesn't surprise me.
And so,
There's movements out there in Europe that are talking about declaring the Bible hate speech and
yeah,
stuff.
and
Yep.
so do you see like this is the world that Moses is living in, right? He's got to figure this. I mean, that's where he's at, and the Pharaoh hates these people, and he's living in that world right there. He's got one foot in both sides.
You know, how many, especially in the 40 years that he was with Pharaoh's household and in the palace, how many times was he asked, why do you worship the God of the Hebrews? Aren't these Egyptian gods any better or any worse?
There you go. All right, let's go to question number 8. Question number 8 says, in several verses, God identifies himself as I am, or I am who I am. What does God mean, or what does this mean for us and for the Hebrew people? So we've heard that a lot. Have you ever thought about this? This is what one commentator says. He says, I am who I am. This is God's very own revelation of his name and of himself. The words are so simple. But have we ever actually thought about what those words mean? I am who I am.
Basically, God declares that who I am does not need any validation. I do not need any confirmation of who I am. Basically, as the creator of the universe, he is who he is.
Okay, so the I am is exactly what Dawn just said. Fiona, would you read this?
I am, God declares. He is an I, a person being. He is not merely an indefinite force or magical power, somewhere out in nature, as many believe.
Right. So that's what the I am means. That he is a personal being. Right? Alright, so then, I am who I am. What does that mean? Anybody want to read that?
I am who I am. These words also breathe the spirit of the absolute independence.
God is absolutely sovereign.
Yeah, that's right. He does what he does. And then what about the I am? I am who I am. That last I am. Anyone want to read that one?
I am, God says. God is timeless, constant, unchangeable. Scripture refers to this I am frequently.
Yeah. So he is
Ever present.
ever present. So he is personal, he is sovereign, and he is always there. And that's what he's saying when he says, I am who I am. And so next time you hear that, we often say that, who is God? I am the great I am who I am. This is what it means. He is right there. He is personal. He is always there. He is unchangeable. He is constantly present. That's what that actually means, that I am who I am.
What great comfort to know that the I am is also in the future as being ever present.
Absolutely. All right, so let's turn that into turn knowledge into act. It says, what are some common belief systems today? How can they influence your understanding? So think about how our common belief systems might corrupt in similar ways what has happened. We kind of touched on this a little bit with those alternate gods and things like that.
And syncretism is kind of what the main thread of Christianity right now.
What did you say it was?
Syncretism, which is
Okay.
basically taking a little bit of Christianity, maybe a little bit of Mormonism, maybe like some stuff out of the atheists and humanists, and you know what? Maybe also some of the stuff out of the Eastern religions like Confucianism or Hinduism.
So merging everything together.
Just merging everything together and blending it into your own personal religion.
Yeah. And anybody else got any other things? What are some other things that can influence our idea of God today from culture?
And I saw it recently. It happened down in Arizona. A preacher was preaching in the streets and got shot and killed.
Okay, so just violence.
More like hate crime.
No, it's like when I was talking syncretism, it's just kind of like was very often said is that there are many ways to God. There are many ways to heaven.
There.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very dangerous. I think that because when you say every way is to God, that takes Jesus out of the picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It takes just about
And-
everything out
and
of the picture.
So when you take Jesus out of the picture, it takes the entire salvation of everybody. You basically lose salvation for every single person, and that makes everything not Christian anymore.
God is optional,
Yep,
and you can make your own God.
there you go.
Yeah.
And that's what
There's
this.
the even more dangerous one, which is with the Reformed churches out there that say not everything in the Bible is true, or it's not all God's word.
There you go.
And at that point, it's like, okay, then what is? And it
But
then calls into
That all
question
gets back to
Jesus.
that all gets back into that idea, like our liberal friends, when you start saying, well, this isn't true, or some of the Bible's not true, you take Jesus out, right?
That's exactly
it all goes
it.
back to Jesus. That's the devil's way of attacking Jesus. And that's what Stephen Iyer was saying. Look at this. It says living in the post-Christian, secularizing culture, even Christians may experience conflicted views of God. And really that's what happens is people start applying things that they hear on television or they see on TV, and they start applying that to their faith. On one hand, we may find that mentally we believe that God is a sovereign creator who is present in all of his creation, but emotionally we can tend to act as if God were a distant clockmaker who has made the world but is not actively engaged in every aspect of our lives. Right.
It's not really agnostic, that's deism.
So you might look at somebody that says, that's what happened with, a while back, the big rage in society was, we don't want to say evolution. Nobody wants to say evolution, right? Because that's clearly false. But we don't want to upset people and say we believe we're six-day creationists, right? Because that's unpopular. So what we're going to do is instead we're going to say that we believe in intelligent design.
Intelligent design, which is just the latest in all the compromise on
But
the
what
first
is it?
chapters
It's
of
a
Genesis.
big compromise. And what does that say? Well, it's basically a big marshmallow that says, believe what you want. And who created the world? We don't know. And it could, is it 6 days? No. It could be billions of years still, right? But we're happy because we put the word intelligent design there. And it was probably a maker. It sounds Christian-y. We applied Christian-y words to it. So see, it became secularly Christian. But does that make it Christian? No. But it made a lot of Christians happy when it came out because they felt like they were winning something. There's the danger. There's how the devil wins.
Let's agree to disagree.
Yeah. see, you gotta stick to the word. That's where you stick to the word. Okay. So let's go to that next paragraph. It said, God gave Moses a mighty task. It could even seem overwhelming, but God did not let him go unprepared. In fact, God sent Moses with all that he needed to go before the strongest ruler of his time with all the proof he needed. This is our God's way of showing Moses that he has nothing to fear. At the time of Moses, there were signs and signals. Today, we have God's word and sacrament. Now we're going to finish it up. We're going to read Exodus chapter 4, verses 1 through 17. I think we'll break this one up because it's a little longer. We'll have somebody read verses 1 through 9, and somebody else read 10 through 17. Who can read verses 1 through 9?
But Moses responded, "What if they do not believe me and do not listen to my voice? But instead they say, 'The Lord has not appeared to you.' So the Lord said to him, What is that in your hand?" He said, "A staff." He said, "Throw it on the ground." Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake. So he ran away from it. The Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand and take it by the tail." He stretched out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a staff in his hand. The Lord said, "This sign is being given to you so that the Israelites will believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you." The Lord also said to him, "Put your hand inside your cloak." So he put his hand inside his cloak, and when he took it out, his hand was leprous, as white as snow. Then the Lord said, "Put your hand back inside your cloak." So he put his hand inside the cloak again, and when he took it out of the cloak, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. The Lord said, "If they do not believe you or do not respond to the first sign, they might believe because of the second sign. If they do not believe even these two signs or listen to your voice, you are to take some water from the Nile and pour it on a dry land. The water which you take from the Nile will become blood on the dry land."
Somebody like to finish this off, 10 through 17?
But Moses said to the Lord, "Please, Lord, I have never been eloquent either in the past or more recently, or even since you started speaking to your servant, for my mouth and tongue are slow and clumsy." So the Lord said to him, "Who made a mouth for people, or who makes someone mute or deaf, able to see or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will be with your mouth, and I will teach you what you will speak." But he said, "Please, Lord, Send someone else." Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and the Lord said, "What about Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Look, he is already coming out to meet you. He'll be very glad to see you. You will speak to him and put the words into his mouth. I will be with your mouth and with his, and I will teach you what you are to do. He will speak to the people for you, so that it will be easy. Well, it'll be as if he were your mouth, and you were God to him. You'll also take the staff in your hand, the one with which you will perform the signs."
All right. So now question number 9 says, after hearing of God's care for the Israelites and being named a leader, Moses questions, "Who am I?" What essentially is he asking God? And how does God answer? So what does that mean? Who am I?
He's basically asking, why me? And then kind of qualifies, they already hate me. I tried once before.
Yeah, yep. And how does God answer him?
I'll be with you.
Yeah, he says, "I'll be with you," and
Shows him some miracles he can do.
yep, he says, here's what you can do, and then he says this. I thought this was good. He says, Moses said, "Who am I that I should go with you, and that I should bring the Israelites to Egypt?" And then he says in verse 12, "I will certainly be with you. This will be a sign for you." Look in verse 13. But Moses said to God, "If I go to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me,' they will ask me, 'What is this his name? And what shall I say to them?' So God replied to Moses, 'I am who I am.' And you will say this to the Israelites, 'I am has sent you.'" And he sends them his name. Because
His very word.
his very word. There it is again. We're always brought back to that word. Because what do we know? The Israelites wouldn't even say the name of God, right? Like if you know anything about how they even wrote, they would skip over the vowels in his name, right? They were so careful about it. So if he brings their name to him, they're going to honor his name. And so that's kind of like his seal. Go ahead.
Sandy said, "Is Moses trying to say that he doesn't want the job?"
Yes.
Exactly what he said.
That's what he's doing. But God is pushing it, right? God's saying, "You gotta do it, man. You're the one." He's got a little bit of Jonah in him, I think, here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, Jeremiah and Isaiah as well. I mean, Jeremiah was scared as he was young and inexperienced.
but I don't remember who I heard that from once. Somebody said that's how you know you got the right person. When they don't want the job. That's usually a good sign you got somebody good when it's an important job. When they don't want the job, but they'll do the job right. Right?
Yeah, generally
Take
with
that into politics.
that's generally with politics, because that's the person who doesn't want the power.
Yeah. All right, so take a look over at question number 9. We're going to go over here. Look at the answer from the Lutheran Study Bible. It says, Moses' first objection is that he is a nobody. He did not recognize that God had shaped him for leadership. Because remember, God had been shaping him from the time he was born, hadn't he? And isn't it beautiful to think that God had put him in exactly the right places at the right time? Sometimes we look at the mess of our backgrounds and we think, wait a second, I'm not supposed to be like this. My life wasn't supposed to be like this. But it was by no mistake that God had said you're going to be in the Nile River. It was by no mistake that God allowed Pharaoh to kill those children. It was by no mistake that God allowed those things. God allowed those things for this moment. Right?
Oh boy, we're back to Esther.
Yep. And there it was. God said, this is why you had these things happen to you. God is sharpening Moses. And I really like that picture that sometimes we look at our backgrounds and we think all the bad things in our lives, right, are just terrible and tear us down. But if you look at your life and you think of your background and you think of all those things that you have happened, and you think of it almost like a sharpener, God is sharpening you into the tool he needs you to be for the moment he needs you to be it.
I remember, I think it was the Time of Grace video where did the very same thing where he talked about an embroidery. Just, you look at the back of an embroidery and it's all tangles of knots and different string colors and everything else. It just looks like a mess. That's us looking at it, at our own life in the moment. But then God sees the other side and says, yep, I made this embroidery, this very beautiful life.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like that.
Jolie said Moses is acting like he's being called for jury duty instead of being God's chosen leader.
I like that. All right, question number 10. What useful or unique skills and experiences does Moses bring to his calling? Let's look at Exodus chapter 2. Andrew, would you read chapter 2, verses 7 through 10?
Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Should I go and call a wet nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Yes, go." So the young woman went and called the child's mother to come. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will pay you for doing it." So the woman took the child and nursed him. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses with the explanation, "Because I drew him up out of the water."
And then Hebrews 11. By faith, Moses was hidden by his parents for 3 months after he was born, because they saw he was a special child, and they were not afraid of the king's order. By faith, Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter when he grew up. He chose to be mistreated with God's people rather than enjoy for a little while. He considered disgrace for the sake of Christ as greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. All right, so now look at this. Question number 10. What useful or unique skills and experiences does Moses bring to his calling?
So, in growing up with the Egyptians, even though he complains that he is slow and stuttering when it comes to his speech, he can speak to the Egyptians as well as the Hebrews.
So he was highly trained, highly educated, right? He had the best education. He grew up in the right household. He had the best education. He could do everything that the Egyptians could do, and he knew all their ways, right?
High cultural.
High cultural. All right. He also, I thought this is interesting. I was doing a lot of research. I read a lot of commentaries getting this. This is one that kept coming up that I thought I had never really considered before, but I thought this was very interesting. He was trained in military command.
Yeah. How else do you organize the Egyptian or the Hebrews into that army formation like that?
Interesting, isn't it? As someone in Pharaoh's household, he would have seen all of this. And this isn't the first time God would use this. Think about David later on. He puts David under Saul. And what does David see under Saul for so long?
Military action.
Military action. So he sees all of this, right? And then what else do we know about Moses?
So Jolie said he knows the Pharaoh and the palace. He knows how the hierarchy works. He also knows the Hebrew people and what they believe. He was both part of and separate from both sides.
There you go. So he's familiar with both Hebrew and Egyptian ways. So he's going to go into the situation. God got Moses ready to lead the people out, and Moses is going to confront Pharaoh, and he's going to lead the people. So he knows both sides. He knows he's the perfect person to confront this Pharaoh and lead the people because he knows both ways equally well. Do you see?
But do you think perhaps he feared the Hebrew people more than he feared the Pharaoh?
I'm sure that he. Well, I don't know if he. I guess I don't know who he feared more.
Because the first thing he says to God is, "Why would they accept what I say?"
Yeah.
He's not worried about the Pharaoh.
That's probably a good argument.
Well, and it also comes with like his final objection and with his stuttering, and God says, "Okay, well, what about your brother Aaron? talk to him, and I will be with both of you,
Yeah.
and Aaron will speak to the Hebrews on your behalf.
I guess my thing would be either way, he's probably going, I'm cooked because he's
Yeah.
he's got a death warrant under him for killing because the
That was
rule-
gone.
The Egyptian rule was an assault against Pharaoh's army was an assault against actually Pharaoh himself.
hmm
And
But-
then
Well, all those people were gone.
When he was coming back, yes, that's why he was being called back,
Yeah.
because the people that wanted him dead were
Gone.
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 But it doesn't mean that people forgot that he did that.
Yeah. So I mean, he's still, yeah. All right, so let's go to question number 11. God gives Moses an overview of all that will follow in Exodus 3:18 through 22. But Moses still isn't sold. What reservations do you bring to God in your life? So in Exodus chapter 3, he says this: they will listen to your voice, and the elders of Israel will go to the king of Egypt, and you will say to him, the Lord God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us go on a 3-day journey into the wilderness, so that they will sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not allow you to go unless he is forced to do so by your powerful hand. So I will reach out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders which I will do in their midst. Afterward, he will let you go. I will give his people favor of the Egyptians, so that when you go, you will not go out empty-handed. Each woman is to ask her neighbor, as well as any woman staying in her house, for articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. You are to put them on your sons and daughters. In this way, you will plunder the Egyptians. Now go look at question 11 again. It says, God gives Moses this overview of how things are going to work out, but it's not sold. So now he's not sold, even though he knows the reservations. God has made you all promises that God is with you. But what reservations do you bring to God in your life? Doubt.
All that doubt. Just so hard living in the temporal biologic life that it's like sometimes things just seem very dark.
Yeah. You still have your worries, right? God says, I'll be with you no matter what. And what do?
Still worry.
You still stay up night and have anxiety, right? And this is the same reservations that Moses is now confronting God with. He says, but what about this? But what about this? But what about this? And God still is saying, I already said it. I'm going to be with you.
But he keeps saying it.
And what do?
We
Keep
keep
saying
saying
the
it.
same. Keep,
And so at some point, you got to turn these things over to God, right? But we know it's hard. Jonah still ran, right? Peter, look at Peter's reaction, even though he was
he was-
a prophet. He still
he denied the
Denied,
Lord 3
yeah.
times.
All right, look at the very bottom. It says Bible study reflection. This is a little bit of homework for you. I want you to do this. We'll start next month or next week with this. It says list 5 ways your family background has shaped your character. Positive and negative, you can decide. 5 ways that your family background has shaped your character, like Moses. And then on the other side, list 5 ways that you would like to contribute to the growth of your family, church, or workplace. You can decide. And with that, we'll end with prayer. Let's fold our hands. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight for seeing in Moses that we are not so far off. That even like Moses, sometimes we have doubts. But you continue to be the same. Help us to put our trust in you. That when our doubts persist, we can look and see that you remain the great I am. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you for joining us. Join me this Sunday. We're going to begin a brand new Advent Bible study on Sunday morning. called God's Great Comforting Love at Christmas. We'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday. God's blessings. See you then.